Hi there, and welcome back. I'm really happy that you're still watching the course, and I can assure you that there are interesting cases and tools ahead of you. In the first module, you've already started the process of transformation with your child just by understanding and looking at your child differently. In this module, we build upon your understanding of the inner map and all the things that are going on in there, and we leverage the power of the positive intention to help your child create deep and rapid transformations in his or her inner map. To create these deep and rapid transformations, we're using a method called externalization. The basic principle of externalization is to separate the identity of the child from the problem. The effect of this is to talk about everything that happens inside your child in third person. For example, instead of saying, "you are angry," we say, "you have a lot of anger in you." Instead of saying, "you are anxious," we say, "you have anxiety in you." The externalization comes about when you address the anger as something other than the child, as something that exists within the child. Doing this separation of the child and the anger allows us to recognize that the child is not the anger. The child may not even like to be angry. The child may even be sad or embarrassed or shameful about the anger. So externalizing the anger allows us to talk to the child about the anger instead of talking to the angry child. In the same way, we don't call or think of the child as an ADHD child, but as a child with ADHD, or even as a child with problems or challenges. This way of thinking also gives us some very interesting options when it comes to talking about executive functions like memory, planning, impulsivity, spelling, and so on. And it allows you to think of your child as whole inside, with a number of problematic patterns, kind of circulating this inner core and making up the outward expression of the child. See, I think of your child as having a healthy core with a naturally high self-worth and a solid value system. And around this healthy core are patterns stuck in the inner map that prevents the child from expressing who he really is. And they prevent us from seeing the real child in there. Our work is to help that child out, to help him or her express herself. Externalizing the patterns not only allows us to address them far more precisely, it also opens up both you and the child to a very rapid transformation of the pattern. Using the externalization method, you can now work with your child when the two of you solve the problems together. And the problem is so much more acknowledging and appreciating and uplifting than any other method that I have come across, which of course it means that the child frees his self-worth and becomes stronger and more resilient for every transformation he manifests. On top of this, we can suddenly do things that we were unable to do before. We can address inner struggles from a positive intention perspective, create powerful internal motivation, change inappropriate or inexpedient thoughts and emotions to their opposites, and in effect transform inexpedient behavior from the inside out. Years ago, I had a young boy around 8 years old come in to my office with behavioral problems, severe focus problems, and anxiety, along with 4 diagnoses. I asked him what it was inside of him that was making him do all the problematic behaviors. He said it was Mr. Bad, and continued to draw an elaborate stick figure with high hat and army boots and some kind of weapon. Mr. Bad was the externalization of this pattern of bad behavior. When I asked the boy how he felt about Mr. Bad, he said that he didn't particularly like him, but that he was better than the nerd boy. Drawing the nerd boy, slouched and sad and small next to Mr. Bad, made it obvious that Mr. Bad was the preferable part of the boy's personality to express. So inside the boy had been made subconscious understandings and beliefs that you could either be cool and bad or nerdy and sad. Once we built up the nerd boy to become Mr. Cool, and we upgraded Mr. Bad to become Mr. Funny, the two parts became more like partners than opposites. This made the boy able to be a balanced mix of funny and cool at the same time. It also allowed him to express his exceptional talent for writing, and he wrote 2 children's crime novels on his own in less than a year. The boy's teacher was impressed by the transformation and commented that the boy had become focused and calm and had become a model pupil. And the mother decided to get the boy reevaluated to get him out of the 4 diagnoses. This sounds like a magical transformation, and really observing it, it is. Obviously, this boy did not become normal. This would not have been possible, and his parents had no desire to make him normal. They're not normal either. What they did want was for him to be able to be part of normal school and life. It took him 14 sessions with me to get to that point, where the first 3 sessions were focused on having him be able to sit in the chair long enough to answer one of my questions. After that, he trusted me enough to work with me, and he would be drawing stick figures from he came in the room until he left. The action point for this video is to start thinking about some of your child's patterns in this way of looking at your child. Write down some of your child's challenges on the action point sheet, maybe even with your child, and then externalize the problem from your child. Please download and print the action sheet below. To the left of the vertical line, write some of the problems your child has. This could be anything from he gets angry, she's fearful, he can't focus, he's always moving around, she doesn't value herself very highly. Whatever it is your child struggles with. Then on the right side, do your first attempt at externalizing these problems from your child. You may even have clues from your child already to support this exercise. This could be his angry monster takes over in him, if your child uses that expression. It could be anxiety pops its head up in certain situations, or distractibility gets the better of him when he tries to focus. He has a lot of surplus energy in his body, or her inner voice is telling her that she's a bad girl. After you've filled out the sheet, say the expressions out loud to practice this new way of communicating. Notice how it makes a difference for you communicating differently about your child's problems. If appropriate, share all or some of the externalized expressions with your child and ask your child what it feels like to him when you use the old way of talking about him versus the externalized way of talking about his problems and patterns. Also, allow him to correct you if you were wrong about some of the expressions. This exercise can be quite a conversation starter if you let it, and if your child is up for it. Ask your child if there are other things that are going on that might be better if you talk about them in this way also. And see if you can have some fun with your child while you do this. Maybe by going through the same action point with some of your own problems, so that he can see that he's not the only one with patterns like this. That was the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one.